Today we'll take a look at how the heat model functions, how we can use this model of the mind to explain working of the psyche in normal situations, in pathological situations, and in supernormal or spiritual situations. So we'll go into it, how we can put this structural entity into function and see how we can explain phenomena using this model of the mind. And the phenomena that I have taken up are three phenomena: a normal phenomena of an ordinary desire, which every day activates, gets satisfied or dissatisfied, and the process completes itself many times over every day. So that is how do we explain an ordinary normal phenomena using heat model of the mind. Second, if we take up a situation of pathology, say extreme fear of authority figures, and if we come to conclude that this is because of non-resolution of the Oedipus complex and castration anxiety, then how do we apply this model in that pathological situation where we are talking about the personal unconscious in the Freudian sense? Second situation of pathology can be when we talk about the collective unconscious in the Jungian sense. I have taken up there the example of paranoia. Freud, of course, has a different explanation of paranoia rooted in unaccepted homosexual desire. Jung would have a different explanation of paranoia. Klein would have a different explanation of paranoia. Uhud would have a different explanation of paranoia. And ISTDP in its essential sense would have a different explanation of paranoia. I have taken up the Jungian explanation here, and of course there will be many Jungian explanations, not one. I have taken up one rooted in overactivation of the predator archetype and how that can be described using this model of the mind. And lastly, we will take a concise overlook on how to go about healing using this model. So we start with heat in normal operation, this model of the mind in an ordinary operation. There is a stimulus, two situations. There is a stimulus outside. Let us say there is some tasty food item outside of me, just in front of me. And that stimulus gets evaluated. It leads to desire activation. So the first important element in heat is desire activation. And we saw in that table what are the factors which can activate desire. One of the factors is the stimulus outside. And the strength of this stimulus is important. Once desire is activated, there is an evaluation how strong. Before that, there is an evaluation what is the nature of this stimulus, how strong it is, and in response to it, based on laws of nature and subjectivity and condition of the individual, how strong a desire should be activated. Once this evaluation says desire activated should be strong, a strong desire is activated. Based on that, affinity is deposited on those elementals, those chakras responsible for pleasure. So here it would be the sex center and partly the root center. And the life energy is then deflected to those centers. Once it happens, the faculty elementals, thinking, imagination, all intuition, all these faculty elementals are used, drawn in to plan action, how to satisfy the desire. And if at all to go ahead or not. If yes, go to action. Once action is done, there is satisfaction, dissatisfaction, partial satisfaction, satisfaction in some area, frustration in the other, and the resultant elementals are activated. And from that, for future, accumulating elementals create schemas, templates, insights, rehearsals, future armor, future tools, and so on. So this is normal operation of the heat model when stimulus is from outside. Second situation, stimulus is from inside. It can be a fantasy, it can be a clock. I have taken up clock. Let's say there's a biological clock. Let's say at 4 o'clock in the noon every day, I have a habit of having a cup of tea. So the moment that time comes, by virtue of my psychological clock, a stimulus is created from the inside. Evaluation happens, desire is activated, affinity is deposited on the relevant chakras, root chakra and the Swadhisthana chakra here. Life energy is deflected to those chakras. Faculty elementals are drawn in to plan how to have a cup of tea. Planning is done, action is undertaken, and then I have satisfaction. And this gives me an accumulating elemental that it is worth having a cup of tea and it is safe, and this is the way one can have it, or these are the different ways one can have it. So this is a very normal operation of everyday life. Let us now look at a pathological situation. Heat model in operation when we have a problem in the personal unconscious in the Freudian sense. Let's say the reporting complaint is fear of authority figures and our analysis tells us it is Oedipus. Now there are two ways of addressing the problem. Either we just go with the complaint as it is, or we go with the psychological phenomena we believe is to be at the root of the complaint. It can be applied in both the cases. If you want to be theoretical in the psychoanalytic sense, to some extent you can be by applying directly to the complaint the heat model. But if you want to be theoretical, whether it's psychoanalytic or CBT orientation, you can apply heat to the phenomena you believe is responsible for the pathology or the complaint. So here, if we apply it to the Oedipus, this is what we get. So we take the route of going with the addressing the psychoanalytic phenomena, not the complaint per se, but what we believe is the cause of the complaint. That is the route we take. We can take directly the complaint route also. So the stimulus is the good mother. Desire activation is the activation of Oedipal desire. Evaluation tells you it has to be a strong activation given the nature of the stimulus and given the intrinsic nature of the desire and also some karmic element. Affinity deposited should be high. Life energy deflected will be at the Swadhisthana center, the second center from the bottom. Faculty elemental drawn in will create Oedipal ideas or deal with the Oedipal ideas. The planning will involve death wish for the Oedipal competitor and castration anxiety if the person comes to know about it. Planning also tells us that there is no way action can be done given the situation, and therefore action is uninhibited because it is unrealistic. The resultant elementals therefore are castration anxiety, guilt, and a suffocating ambivalence. Accumulating elementals tell you the templates to be created are this: give up the Oedipal desire, decide to be like the Oedipal rival, wait for the right time to find the substitute Oedipal object. This is the way we can describe in terms of elementals the same Oedipal phenomena. Let's take a second example, how heat can be used to describe Jungian analysis. Complaint is fear of a hitman coming to kill. Diagnosed as paranoia, delusion of persecution, and in the Jungian terms, it's the overactivation of the predator archetype. Stimulus is a predator archetype inside, and that activates in the personal unconscious the fear of a hitman. So in the collective unconscious, it is the overactivation of the predator archetype. And in the personal unconscious, it activates the fear of a hitman. Now, how this translation happens is the question of specifics of that mind. Why the predator archetype has converted into only a hitman and not something else is something very specific to the mind we are focusing on. For that, we require a lot of data. Then comes desire activation, desire to live, avoid pain, being killed, being tortured, and the desire to control or escape the predator. It's actually desire to live and avoid pain, and the desire desire to live, avoid pain, and the desire to kill, torture, control, or escape the predator. These desires are activated. Evaluation is the desires are very strong. One, two, the predator cannot be overcome. Intense fear of the predator has to be felt, and correspondingly, huge amount of affinity is deposited on the root chakra. Life energy is deflected to the root chakra in very high amounts. Faculty elemental is drawn in. How to deal with it, how to take defensive action. Planning and analysis continues. How to kill, what if it fails, what is going to happen, all the questions come in. How difficult the attack of the predator will be, when will he attack. Action to attack evaluated as futile, resulting in one being frozen in action and helplessness. Reflex, acting out can happen, or seeking help can happen, or both can happen. Resultant elementals activated are anxiety, hiding, seeking protection, crying, rage. Accumulating elementals get into insight creation, true or false, what to do in paranoia, how to avoid the precipitating factor, whatever be the analysis, true or false, what does help and what aggravates. So this is the description using heat model of the core process in paranoia. If we go by the one of the Jungian interpretations of paranoia, overactivation of the predator archetype. How does healing proceed? We can directly address the phenomena, the complaint as it is, or the phenomena reported, or we can go into the psychoanalytic root of it and address that root phenomena, the psychoanalytic phenomena. So there can be a direct addressal of the complaint or a psychoanalytic root cause addressal of the complaint. And when we do that, we first look at the essential affect system, how the negative affect is being generated in that phenomena, either direct phenomena or psychoanalytically causal phenomena. If we do it in a direct way, it becomes like a kind of The core process resembles that of CBT, CDT or ISTBT. Of course, the analysis is in different terms. The working also involves slightly different techniques and tools, but there is some resemblance on the surface if we just go by the direct addressal of something. But once we take up the psychoanalytic route, of course, we are looking at application of some school and the causal phenomena believed by that school to be the cause of it. And then we take a look at the essential affect system. Whatever we choose, for that we apply the essential affect system, which we have seen before. We'll see it again once more to refresh, but we have seen this before. And then we look at what are the elementals at work. And we have seen the list of elementals before in this affect system or otherwise in whatever route we have chosen. And then what are the techniques we have and what are the tools we have to address. This is the list of elementals we had seen before. All elementals can be divided into three: structural, process or functional, and freedom. And the process elementals can be further subdivided into motivational, generic operational, faculty, characteristic, resultant, activity. And we can use cognitive tools to heal cognitive issues and affect tools to heal affect issues. Cognitive tools we can borrow from existing system, can develop new ones. Here we can borrow it from other systems or develop new ones. Affective tools are many. We can have it from ISTDP, emotion control therapy, psychodrama, some forms of EDT, some forms of affect focused workshops. This is the essential heat system I was referring to. This also we have seen before. What are the factors of desire activation? These are the factors. What are the factors of affect generation? These are the factors. What are the factors involved in affect regulation? These are the elements. And symptom formation. So after all these factors come together, we have activation of desire of a particular strength, which is X. So all these seven or some of them ultimately create a desire with some strength, which we call X. This X becomes the input for the second process, affect generation. And at the end of it, we have affect Y with some intensity. And that then is partly expressed, partly sublimated, partly contained, and ultimately remains the excess pathological affect Z. And this Z then creates symptoms, either as psychological symptoms or as psychosomatic sickness or both. In the case that we saw 80% paranoia, we can have direct addressal just of the complaint without going into psychoanalytic schools, or we can go into psychoanalytic schools and address the psychoanalytic causal phenomena as we understand it. And whatever path we choose, we first look at desire activation and we look at which are the elementals of desire activation and which elementals are very strong and critical for the person. We look at affect generation, this part. We look at affect regulation. We look at symptom formation. And then we look at symptom development. How has a symptom developed over a period of long time? And we find out from this table and from this, we can use not only the affect system, but also these elementals which are involved in either the generic complaint as we take it, or in the psychoanalytic phenomena, or in the affect system. These elementals, and we have seen the list of each of these elementals. When we talk about motivational elementals, what are the variables in this category? We have seen the list of variables for each of the categories. All those variables have to be brought about to be used in first pathogenesis of the problem, or to describe and analyze the problem if we don't want to go into school pathogenesis, and then find out which elementals are critical for healing and what are the tools and techniques we have to address that elemental. For cognitive, we saw this before, for cognitive elementals we use cognitive tools, affect elementals we use affect tools. So which elementals are critical and which techniques and tools to address them. And this techniques and tools development is a continuous process. And here we take quite some techniques and tools from not only Western psychotherapy but also Eastern spirituality, and some tools from epistemology. If you apply this, essentially you will realize sensitivity, positivity are the core two elementals which need addressal in most situations. Sensitivity is related to affect generation, and positivity, of course, it's on a continuum. Sensitivity is a continuum, and positivity to negativity is a continuum. So high sensitivity to low sensitivity is a continuum, and positivity to negativity is a continuum. It is only when we move towards negativity that the problem starts, because even if the affect generation is high, but if affect generation is of positive affect, it's not a problem. It's only when the affect generated is negative and in large quantities, then the second question comes, can we regulate it? And if not, symptom formation happens. So at the root are two elements, sensitivity and positivity. Sensitivity is related to affect generation, and positivity is related to what is the flavor of affect generated. So this is the way heat model can be applied in normal situations, in pathological situations. As we go along, we'll elaborate on functioning of the heat model in various situations, and that will help us to understand existing phenomena from a new standpoint, get more insights into it, develop a more accurate, exact, and elemental understanding of the working of the mind, of pathogenesis, of healing, and bring out some new elements which are so necessary for comprehension of this whole area of mind and psychotherapy. Thank you.